You have to really decide what feels good in your gut. I wanted to lead a campaign with love. I wanted to lead with purpose and mission and values.
Hi, welcome back. Welcome to our podcast, The Zero Hunger Project. I'm your host, Suman.
I'm Stacia.
And today we're going to talk, and Stacia, I'm going to give out who we are talking.
Okay.
Because that's really important. And we're going to talk to Senator Mona Das. From the Senate floor to the story, how Senator Mona Das uses policy, film, and voice to transform power. Now, who is Senator Mona Das?
I'm
very
excited to tell you about it because this is an excellent bio. I'm super stoked. Today's guest is Mona Das, a former Washington State Senator, environmental justice champion, storyteller, and connector, on a mission to dismantle systemic barriers and amplify underrepresented voices. Born in India and raised in the U.S., Mona's lived experience as a first-generation immigrant, woman of color, and changemaker deeply informs her work. Her career spans 2 decades in sustainable business and mortgage lending, groundbreaking policy work in the Washington State Senate, and now the creative world of filmmaking, mentorship, and storytelling. As a senator, Mona led efforts to advance environmental protection, housing affordability, and racial equity, including Washington's landmark Senate Bill 5022, which bans certain single-use plastics. She passed nearly 30 impactful bills, always centering in the communities most often excluded from decision-making. Now, since leaving public office, Mona has continued to make waves through her creative platform Moxie, and as the executive producer of the award-winning documentary Badass Women Doing Kick-Ass Shit, spotlighting BIPOC women running for office. Yes, Mona, her latest venture, Podcast, fuses storytelling, activism, and representation to push culture forward and challenge the status quo. Mona's mission is clear: to help people step into their voice, their power, and their purpose, and in doing so, transform not only themselves, but the system around them. This episode explores how storytelling and identity shape power, how creative resistance can spark policy change, and how leaders like Mona are bridging politics, art, and advocacy to create a more just and inclusive future. Super stoked to have you join us today.
So great to be here. Thank you. What an honor.
Thank you. So you have transitioned. Before even I get into this question, I really want to know, as a person of color, a woman in Washington State, to get to the Senate floor, it is no easy feat, to say the least. What happened? How did you make that happen? And what were your biggest challenges?
I think some of the bigger challenges when you decide to run for office and you don't know what you're doing is that you don't know what you don't know. And I think that's also an advantage because you don't know what you don't know. So you just do it anyway, right? And my family came to America with $6. And so I have inherited from my parents optimism and drive and grit and tenacity to make it. So for me, I didn't really, once I decided to do it, I was all in. And so I just did whatever I had to do to make it work, right? And I hired the right people. I got advice from great people. I also got, crappy advice too. So you have to really decide what feels good in your gut. And for me, I wanted to lead a campaign with love. I wanted to lead with purpose and mission and values and ethics and morals. And so for me, it was more than me. And what I very quickly realized, when you run for office, you replace the word I with we, and you talk about community, and you include and involve your community. And that's how you win a campaign. Nobody wins a campaign as a party of one.
And you came from Bihar. Suman was telling me you came from Bihar. Is that where you're from in India?
That's right. Yes.
So from Bihar to Washington State is a bit of a cultural shift, no?
It's a bit of a difference, yeah. And I'm proud to say I'm the first person from Bihar to ever be elected to state or federal office in the United States.
Love that.
Wow.
I'm very curious to know about your transition from public office to storytelling. I want to know what podcast is, what it stands for, where it came from, what you're doing. Tell me all the things.
Yeah, so Bodcast is, as you mentioned, Badass Women Doing Kick-Ass Shit. That's just the way we, shortened it for the website. And so basically, I think I've always been a storyteller. I think in order to run for office effectively, you have to be able to tell good stories. And my storytelling really took to a whole new level when I was running for office. And when I left office, my biggest purpose was I wanted to make a bigger impact. I wanted to make more global change. And how could I do that? And one of the things that I saw in elected leadership, there's not a lot of people that look like me as a politician in America, especially in Washington State. It's a pretty,
Homogeneous.
yeah, that's a great way of putting it. It's a homogeneous community. Yes. It's not diverse like Toronto. I'll say that. I've been there many times. And so for me, the movie was an extension of that storytelling. I always say I don't want to raise a hand down to lift up the next. I want to send out an elevator and bring up as many as I can. And so for me, it was like, how can I do that? And this movie was the idea that drove that change. There's 8 women of color in the movie. I'm one of them. And 7 out of 8 of us that were running for office won our elections. And what's so cool about the movie, at least for me as a participant in it, obviously as the executive producer as well and the creator, but the stories were so similar. So these women are from all different backgrounds, from all different parts of the country. Their origins are from, very, very diverse parts of the world, but yet our stories are so similar. And that's what you'll see when you watch the movie. And I will say this, it's not a movie about women running for office. It's a movie about women living their dreams, going for it, pulling themselves up and doing the impossible. And it can be used for inspiration for anything, because not everyone's going to run for office.
No, it's about challenging the status quo.
That's right. That's right. In whatever realm it is for you. So the whole purpose isn't to make you want to run for office, although if that's a byproduct, awesome.
It's a metaphor.
Yeah, absolutely.
Through podcasts, you explored the intersectionality of food, identity, immigration. How does the storytelling help surface truths that policy often overlooks?
Well, policy is created by people, right? So one of the things I learned, and you mentioned the 28 laws I passed, laws are ideas. Every law starts off as an idea. And that is what a law is. It is a codified idea. It is somebody's vision for how to solve a particular problem. And so, I would say even my strongest environmental bill, so part of my repertoire in the Senate, and I know you've already done this in Canada, but in the US, it's still, a revolutionary. I banned plastic bags, I banned styrofoam, and I banned all single-use plastics for the state of Washington. And what's the most important to me about that legacy that I left is because Washington is so progressive and we have a trifecta, which means we have the Senate, the House, and the governorship, we're able to pass laws that are more progressive and more innovative. And so because we come from a state like that, my bill is now being used in other states as they want to pass parts of the bill or all of the bill. I know it's been used in Oregon and Hawaii and California and New York, and other states are coming online because if we can do it in Washington, then they have an example to change that. And then, and this is what happened in Canada, I'm assuming, in the US, once enough states pass something, then it just becomes harder to not have a federal law to make it mandatory in all 50 states. So that's what I'm hoping, that eventually my language and my bills will make it all the way to federal government and be passed for all 50 states.
Fingers crossed. You might have to wait a few years for that.
Well, yeah, we'll probably have to wait a few years for that, but yeah, we'll be patient.
Yeah.
What happens when you give badass women doing kick-ass shit the authority to make change?
Oh my gosh. Well, one of the things I loved, and this is something I learned in grad school, my MBA is in sustainable business. And so one of our founders used to always say, it's all good work. And what I realized is that everybody that came to school to learn went back and took that knowledge into their own communities, into their own jobs, into their own careers, into their own professions. And that is what I believe inspiring women. I don't like the word empower, but I use the word inspire. Inspiring women to make change in their communities, in their given careers and fields of expertise. We all have to be out there doing the work. It can't just be, I mean, I know you focus on food systems, but food systems and hunger is tied to so many other systems. They're all connected.
Yeah.
And hunger is a byproduct.
And hunger is political.
Absolutely. There is enough food to go around. Absolutely. Yeah.
Totally. So tell me about this. So what responsibility do creatives, filmmakers, digital storytellers have in the global conversation on food justice or food appetite? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think storytellers play a huge role. I had a quote that I wrote on my notebook in grad school, and it was like, whoever tells the best story wins. And I can't remember who said that particular quote, but I do know that if you have the power, look, we're all different, right? We all have our different strengths. We all have our different expertise. If your power and your expertise and your strength is actually storytelling, then it is imperative that you get out there and do that, because stories need to be told. Storytelling has been going around since the campfire days, right? I mean, if you look at the hieroglyphics on walls, which I've seen personally, those are stories, right? There's ancient stories from the past because they wanted to preserve those stories for some reason. So storytellers have a unique skill and ability to tell these stories, and these stories need to be told. Until a story is told, it doesn't make it real for people. And I will tell you, one of the things about passing policy, which was so interesting. So, for example, when I was passing my plastic bag bill, we brought students from elementary school to come and tell why they wanted this bill to be passed. They'd all seen, the videos of turtles with straws in their nose, and, they knew what plastic bags were doing to the earth that they were going to inherit from us. And they came in and they would tell personal stories about why they cared about this bill, why they took school off, drove down to Olympia, our capital, and would share why this was important to them. And I will tell you, having students show up and tell their personal stories, out of the mouth of babes, right? You can't deny that these things need to happen when a kid comes around and says, hey, adults, do something.
So when we talk about storytelling as activism, is that a through line to what it is that you're doing now? Is that really the message that you're getting out, is that there are lots of forms of activism? And it sounds to me like what you're saying is one of the most powerful and compelling of those methods is through storytelling.
I 100% agree. Everything that comes out of our mouth, I was thinking about this just the other day, is a story. It's either a positive story, a negative story, a fearful story, a joyful story, but every single thing you say to somebody is a story. Unless you're just going to read the encyclopedia and like blurt out facts.
And frankly, a lot of that stuff is made up also. So
True. Always written by the victors, right?
Going back to your plastic ban legislation, what were your maybe 2 or 3 biggest obstacles that you faced in that journey?
It was industry. So in America, and I don't know how it works in Canada, but in America, we have things called lobbyists. And lobbyists are paid to kill bills. Lobbyists are paid to basically kill progress. And they get paid a lot of money to do so. To the tune that the really successful lobbyists in Olympia, Washington, one state, they're making like $1.2 million a year. Probably it's higher now. And then me as the legislator, I was making $50,000, right? So like the power dynamics is like really crazy shift. And so the lobbyists that were the most, and this is so interesting to peel back the layers on this. It was actually the paper industry that didn't want the bill. And when you peel back the layers of this is what's so crazy. They had shut down all their paper mills. So they needed to make a business decision on whether or not they were going to open their paper mills, because if we passed the plastic bag ban, that meant that people would want paper more than they want the thicker plastic, or maybe to bring their own reusable bag. So they needed time. This is why they killed my bill the first year. So they would have a whole extra year to plan whether or not they were going to bring their paper mills back online. I mean, just crazy. Like, you can't. Oh my God, I was so pissed. I remember sitting there having a conversation with the lobbyist, who was an absolute asshole. And sitting there, and I was new, right? I was brand new. And he kind of like hinted to what was going on after he'd killed the bill and it was dead for the year. And my head just exploded. It was like, you are killing progress because you needed an extra year to make a decision? Like, that, but that's what it is. It's like, and that's why they do that. Their entire purpose is to give them more time to come up with a solution or whatever, right?
That serves them, though. That serves them. Like, let's be clear.
100% did not serve the environment, did not serve the community, did not serve anything else other than them.
They were looking for tax loopholes, like whatever the benefits were to all of that, and they were doing it on their own time and their own dime.
I'm so curious about this because I'm a political geek on this. So how did you feel at that point when your colleagues killed that bill, knowing why it was killed?
Well, like I said, I didn't know until after. And after what I did was I actually called his boss, and I had his boss come to the actual client, come to my office, and I had a very stern conversation with that person. That particular lobbyist then was no longer allowed to speak to me because of the way he treated me. And, I think I don't remember if he got taken off the account or what, but, and so then we made a deal. The actual boss and I made a deal. And then the next year that bill passed. But it took a whole year, right? And so I will say that what I did do was, these really large bills, usually you put like a date that's 2 years out. So I didn't change the year. So that bill passed, and then they didn't get that extra year. They basically we went to the original year. So that's what happened. And that's, that was me learning how to work the ropes. And after that, I stopped talking to lobbyists. If I didn't get the answer that I liked, I would call the company directly, the person hiring the lobbyist, and say, hey, by the way, this is what your lobbyist is saying. Is that how you feel about certain things? And most often not, those lobbyists are working on their behalf, because here's the thing. They kill the bill. They have a whole nother year to work on that bill again for their client, right? So the lobbyist serves their own interests by killing bills, so they get hired again to work on the bill the next year.
And so this is the question I have when people are working in these spaces where there's sort of a David and Goliath kind of situation going on here. How do you stay motivated when you know that the system is so unbelievably rigged? How do you get up in the morning and go, okay, here I go again. I'm going to go in there and just take it in the face one more day. Like, how do you keep going? I mean, I know that you're driven by motivations of helping people and raising everybody up and stuff like that, but just the day-to-day, like, how did you not spend an entire afternoon punching people in the face, for example? Like, how do you not lose your shit when you're dealing with these people?
I'll tell you what's something funny. I had a colleague who will remain nameless, but this person actually said to me, like, because I was known for passing 4-year bills in 2 years. That's what that plastic bag bill should have been, a 4-year. So that bill was a 4-year bill, meaning it should have taken 4 years to pass. I passed it in 2. And I was kind of known for that, right? Because I didn't deal with the bullshit. And I actually had a colleague say to me, well, if you pass that bill so quickly, what are you going to work on next year? And I was like, oh my God.
How long is a piece of string? Like, I got stuff I got to do.
I mean, it's the legislators too that really just wanted to like it floored me. But I also didn't run for re-election, right? And so I knew that I was there for 4 years, and I wanted to do as much good as I could in 4 years, because I didn't really ever know if I was wanting to sign back up for this, to your point.
Why didn't you run? Why didn't you run?
I mean, there were a variety of reasons. First of all, you can't afford to. I mean, I'm a single woman, like $50,000 a year in Seattle. Like, you can't afford that. Plus, you're gone for 3 months a year. What employer is going to be like, oh, by the way, yeah, don't worry. Take January through April off. We'll see you in March, right? Like, we'll see you in May. That doesn't work. So it just became a financial decision. It became a family decision. I wasn't like meeting obligations with my family and my mom. And then finally, like to your point, like how much beating your head against a wall do you really want to do? And for some people, and I went straight to the Senate. I had no elected position before that. I went straight to the Senate. Many people, that's the culmination of their career. They've started off in student school board, then they went to city council, then they go to the House, then they go to the Senate, and that's the end of their career. Well, this was the beginning of my political career, and I knew that I could do more good knowing what I knew, right? So knowing what I knew and how to like massage the system. I mean, 28 bills in 4 years, that is remarkable. I mean, most people pass 0 and 1 bill a year. And for me to pass 28 in 4 years was, as a freshman, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And so I realized, many factors went into it. But finally, it was like, God, now that I know what I'm doing, I can guide other people to make these changes. And that's what I do now. I work with people who want to make impact, but don't know how. Like, how do you, once you get to a certain level and you need legislation to be passed for your ideas and projects to move forward, your vision, how do you do that? Well, very few people actually know the ropes of the ins and outs of like how to move 28 bills through both chambers and the governor's desk to get it signed into law. And so that's the work that I do now. And I look for like amazing people. Like the work that you're doing in hunger is so needed, sadly, but it's so needed. And as you mentioned earlier, it's not food, it's political, and it's everything. All the systems are when somebody goes hungry, it is the failure of every system that is supposed to be in place for them. And boom, to go into hunger like that's unconscionable in this day and age when we have plenty of food. It's unconscionable.
On top of which one of the quotes, statistics that I've heard bandied about is that everybody is like 1 or 2 paychecks away from being like indigent, basically. So exactly. Like our system's broken, first of all. Your system, our system, it's all broken because it's all predicated on the same thing. I have a couple of questions. First of all,
well, I want to just stop you really quickly because I want, if you get anything from this conversation with, an actual politician, I want you to know this. Our systems aren't actually broken. They are working. They are working exactly the way they were designed to work.
Okay. All right. Okay. That is fair. That is fair. This is a point that I've been making in other places, is that we're trying to flourish inside of systems that weren't created for us.
Yeah, for children, for folks of color, for immigrants, none of that. And so that is...
I stand corrected.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no. It's not being a correction. It's just realizing that, like, we cannot keep saying our systems are broken because they're not. And what it takes to change is people like us that are sick of it and have the time, the money, the resources, the care to do what they can to change that, because it doesn't have to be this hard. Does it have to be this hard? It doesn't have to be this hard.
Well, so a couple of things. First of all, how did your colleagues feel about your success rate? Right? Because first of all, that's not going to make the average person who's sitting around with their...
I'll tell you what, I was blessed with a class. There were 6 of us that arrived at the same exact time. None of us had been in the House. Some of them had been in political leadership, but not like in their city locals. And we were all very driven. I mean, we all came in 2018. So you know what happened in 2016. And so we all came with a mission, and even the lobbyists. So there's 2 kinds of lobbyists. They're called black hats and white hat. And the black hat lobbyists are, the corporate folks that are trying to kill everything. And the white hat lobbyists are people like you and I are actually trying to make change positively. And the white house lobbyists would say to all of the new of us, like, you guys brought a breath of fresh air. First of all, we brought the average age of senator from 70 to like 40. And second of all, we didn't know what the rules were, so we just made our own. And we didn't care what the conventions were. We were there to get shit done. I'd say 3 of us were folks of color, 2 of us were immigrants. I mean, two were in the LGBTQ community. So it was like we had this complete cohort of change makers. And so we met every Tuesday. Every Tuesday we would meet. I mean, we'd see each other during the week and stuff, but every Tuesday we would meet and like have a set, like, hey, here's what I learned this week. Oh, here's how you pass this. And so together we were just so powerful because we also, by the way, were a voting bloc. We could kill bills as well.
6 votes.
6 votes. That's right.
That's badass.
We didn't take shit from anybody, right? And we took names, right? We shared information. Here's a good lobbyist. Here's a bad one. Here's how I dealt with this one. I mean, we would share. And that's how we all passed a lot. And so I was just in this class of other that we came in not for a title. In fact, I hated it when people called me Senator Das because I like my name. And so I thought it was weird. And so we didn't come in for titles. We came in to get shit done. And that's exactly what we did. That's a great question. No one's ever asked me that.
I also love that. Yeah. I also love that. So tell me now, because I'm into literally everything that you're saying. I'm here for all of it. I want to be friends with you. I want to be friends with those other women. I want to do stuff. I want to tear shit down. I'm here for all of it. But in the meantime, how are you elevating other people's platforms? How are you now taking what you learned in that pressure cooker of an environment and helping other people to move their platforms forward?
Well, my biggest thing is my connections. I definitely fancy myself as a super connector, and I know my Rolodex is quite vast and unlike most, right? Like I have senators and congressmen and congresswomen and, all kinds of elected leaders all over the country in my phone, right? In my Rolodex. And so my greatest excitement is when I can connect 2 people together to make really cool stuff happen, and elevate. And that's why, that's the impact work that I do. It's as good as my Rolodex, right? So it's like, you need that. Oh, I know. And if I don't know specifically who, I know somebody who does know, right? And so that's my greatest asset for my clients is my Rolodex and my ability to use them and maintaining good relationships with people so that they want to help, right?
Well, and also, I mean, I wouldn't cross you for all this, tea in China. I'd be like, yes, Mona, absolutely. Whatever it is that you need, it will be my pleasure to get that for you. What sectors do you work inside of? Is it just political, or do you work in other sectors?
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, the work that I do with impact and changemakers is across a variety of sectors, just depending on what people want. So, I'm working in the environment field, in housing, in water rights, in mental health. I mean, there's a variety of different. I mean, I'd love to get involved in what the work that you all are doing. I definitely want to have further conversations about that.
Trust me, you're in.
We're gonna talk about it on our girls' weekend away, Mona. Don't you worry. We'll figure it out.
Nice. So, I mean, the good thing about my background, and I come from a tech background, I have a mortgage background, I have a finance background, I have a sustainability background. So I come from a really interesting background. Then you add the political piece on top as well as the movie making. And the thing about politics is it's all sectors, right? And how you pass a bill or how you make laws or change or get your legislators to listen to you. Because if you had a meeting with me when I was in the Senate, it was a 15-minute meeting. And you have to be really good. I used to train people how to speak to me in the second and the third and fourth years, because the first year they would just come in, spew their word salad at me and try to impress me. Then they would leave. And I'm like, I don't even know what you wanted, right? So I train people how to speak to me. And that's what I do now is I help people speak to whoever it is they need to speak to in a manner that's effective, that they can be heard, and they can have action taken on what it is the issue that they care about. Because at the end of the day, and this is what I know, and I know you have different parties where in Canada, but like in the US, like Democrats, Republicans, at the end of the day, we all want the basic same things, which is health and happiness for our family and loved ones. How we go about that and how we talk about that is two different ways. And the biggest difference I've seen on our side, on the Republican side versus the Democratic side, the Democrats talk about we, lots of we, our community, we're doing this, we're doing that. And the Republicans, it's a lot of I's. Everything is about the individual and what they want to accomplish, right? And that's like, I mean, look at just what happened with this, the bombing that we just had this weekend. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous.
Well, it's the difference between capacity building and legacy building, right? It depends on what your motivation is. If your motivation is to build community and capacity, that's one thing. If your motivation is driven by personal legacy, then that's a whole other issue.
But even the personal legacy could be a better one.
Yes, but
if it is the right person.
If you're in public office, then ostensibly you're there to serve the greater good.
Yeah.
That's right. And not yourself. And I will say, a lot of the people that I served with that have been there for a long time, I mean, they're there for 30 years. Like, it's like, God, like, what do you really think you're the best representative of your entire community? That's ego. And once you get a taste of that power, it's very hard for them to relinquish.
This is the problem, right? And to go back to this notion of trying to flourish inside of systems that weren't created for us, if you look at the people who created these systems to begin with, they're not representative of the actual global population. So that's a problem right there.
And they're the one who holds power.
Yeah.
So, Mona, we have talked about it very briefly earlier, the United Nations. And if you could curate a short film or series about hunger or poverty for the UN, what themes would be absolutely non-negotiable for you?
Wow, that is such a great question. I had never thought of that slant on the work that I've done, but I love it. I mean, as you know, I really want to get involved in the work that the UN is doing. I think, first of all, it's stories, right? You have to tell stories. And I think really powerful stories are stories of people who didn't have and now have because of a certain program or a certain mentor or a certain somebody that lifted them up. And I think those are really, really powerful stories. I think we have to talk about the root cause. I think we need to know that anyone that's hungry in the world is a failure on all of our parts. And how do we change that for the next generation? There should be no hunger. There's no shortage of food.
There is absolutely no shortage of food, but unfortunately, in a country like United States, country like Canada, country like UK, France, the so-called rich countries, we are seeing that our neighbors are going to bed hungry.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I will say this too, in the US, with all of this stuff that's happening with immigration, I am very fearful that so much of this food is going to rot in the field or on the tree, because there is going to be nobody there to harvest what has taken, years to grow. And that is absolutely devastating and heartbreaking. And it's going to cause a huge shift in humanity.
It's not just pickers either. It's the people that are emptying garbage cans. It's people that are serving in restaurants. It's a whole layer of, American and Canadian, North American society. There are individuals, new Canadians, who are given jobs because we don't give university accreditation, for example, right? If you've got a PhD in pick a place and then you come here and you're handing out towels at the Y, that's a problem, first of all, right?
Yes.
And that puts you in an incredibly vulnerable sector, even though you've done the work to not be in that sector.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, the thing that really drives me is nobody can help where they were born, right? The zip code that you were born in, the country that borders are arbitrary. I mean, I have been to 50 countries. There's never been a line, a black line that I've crossed that's like, oh, now I'm in a new country or now I'm in a new state. Borders are absolutely arbitrary. And why does it dictate where somebody was born with how they are treated and what their economic potential is and what their life purpose is going to be, right? It's not fair. It's literally like saying that just because you were born here or there, you get certain privileges. And we know that it's true. Obviously, as Canadians, Americans, we know that it's true. I mean, this state that I come from in Bihar is the poorest in all of India. And they also have hunger shortages, and there is no shortage of food in India either.
And I think the thing is that when you zoom out and look at these problems sort of at a meta level, you realize that everything that we're talking about is made up.
Yeah. Yeah.
The economics is made up.
Yeah.
Politics is made up. It was all made up in a room with dudes with pointy hats and big belt buckles who decided, right? Adam Smith, the
but look at
founder
it
of modern day
today.
economics.
But look at it today. Even today, look what happened in the U.S. in the beginning of this year with USAID. Now, USAID is not only helping people across the world with food. How many American farmers were getting millions of dollars producing that food?
Who voted for Trump, by the way.
Exactly. And they are now getting deprived of a living.
That's right. Well, and I will tell you, when I ran for office, I'll never forget, I drove past a farm and it was a Trump sign, and next to it said help wanted. And it was like, you realize, like, people don't understand the consequences of their actions. And I think that's why we see that the administration is pulling back on certain philosophies and policies, because they realize that, oh my God, the day that the immigration started, like ICE started showing up, people didn't show up to work. And then what? You're a farmer. You're like, I listened to this guy the other day who was a roofer, and he's like, I voted for Trump and now none of my staff is coming to work. Well, yeah, no duh. Like, no shit, Sherlock. Like, what do you think?
Yeah, and the idea that you would be so myopic in your vision about what's happening that you wouldn't string those two things together, to me, is jaw-dropping.
No, but I understand the common people not stringing that together. But policymakers, really, they don't realize...
You understand that a farmer who needs help to bring in his harvest every year and has relied on that help his entire life, his father's entire life, and his grandfather's entire life, is voting in a person who is going to remove those people from the economy.
100%. But what I'm saying...
And now they're wondering why their farm is collapsing.
No, but what I'm saying is the people who are making these policies, won't they realize and vet it out what the outcome of this policy will be?
No,
No.
Why would they
Let
ever...
me tell you, as a policymaker, what I discovered that was the most horrifying.
Can't even imagine what you're going to say right
now.
Yeah,
you're not going to know. I just assumed that my colleagues thought about this stuff. I mean, I studied systems change. Like, I literally went to school to study systems change. And so I just assumed, and this was the biggest learning from my first year. And if you do any Googling about Mona Das, you'll see it. I called my colleagues in the Senate Democratic Caucus racist, sexist, misogynistic, and full of hate, because their biases show up, their privilege shows up, their upbringing shows up. And I will tell you what, most of these old white dudes only know other old white dudes.
Well,
absolutely.
They're the ones, that's what I'm saying with the pointy hats and the belt buckles. These were all done by old white dudes. I mean, we're talking about stuff that goes back to the onset of the Industrial Revolution, and we're still struggling with it right now because those same jackasses are all still in power. We just keep re-electing them, or
100%. And I will say this, not only do they not know anyone that doesn't look like them, they don't seek it out. And that is why I was when I left the Senate, I was like, I have to elect 1,000 more Monas, because if we don't, we are going to be in this same cycle for eternity. And the only way it changes is when you have more women in power, when you have more folks of color in power. Because what is it? Einstein says you can't solve the problems with the same mentality that used to create them. So if we are going to elect old white rich dudes, we're going to continue to have,
The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
I mean, look at the current administration. I don't like to say his name, but like, talk about privileged white dude. He has no idea.
But don't you love, I just saw that Marjorie Taylor Greene, Marjorie Taylor Greene has just come out and been like, Donald Trump lied. I was like, oh my God. Like
we are just quoting, we are not giving our opinion.
I have 1,000 opinions that I will freely give. But I mean, it's this type of myopic thinking that people inside of their own party are now starting to turn on each other because they don't have the forethought to sort of see further down the line.
But I say this one as much as I'm sad that Mona Das is not a senator anymore, but I really love your vision to have 1,000 more Mona Dases
sign me up for that program.
Elected officials or policymakers. That is huge. And I'm really hoping that anybody who's watching our podcast has any interest, please reach out to Senator Mona Das and have this conversation because we need more of you who's passionate about any kind of changes.
Yep.
We need you to stand up and have your voice.
So let me ask you these two questions I ask everybody who shows up on our podcast. The first thing is, what is the conversation that we're not having? I mean, I think we've covered that, but is there something specifically that you feel as a storyteller is a story that's not being told? And second to that is, what is your best case scenario introducing storytelling and activism to a larger audience?
The conversation that we're not having, we've had a lot of it today. But I really do think that there is power in the voices that aren't being heard, especially the ones that don't and can't get loud for whatever reason, whether it's internal or external. And those are the voices that we need to listen to. And that's what I loved about my movie, is that the women that are in the movie have immigrant backgrounds. I mean, one of the women is Native American, and she was talking about how when she moved to California, they put her in ESL class because they just thought she was Mexican. Right? So here she was, a Native American, obviously speaking English natively. And then she gets to California in the 3rd grade and she gets put in a class with all Spanish speaking students, right? Like, that's the kind of mentality that, like, people just don't know. And your second question is how to make storytelling more broad. I think we have to lift each other up. We have to share the stories that we find. I mean, we all have our own little platforms now. I mean, no time in history has an individual person named Mona Das had her own little platform called social media, right?
Can you imagine?
It's amazing. Like, if you think about the power you have in the palm of your hands, right? And everyone wants to go viral, but like, what does that mean to go viral? You also have to have something to back it up, right? Otherwise, they're just a one-hit wonder. And so I think, how do we support each other? How do we elevate each other? How do we shape the narrative that we want to see, that we believe should be in the world, by elevating the work that you're doing and I'm doing and other people that we both are in communication with are doing? I think that's the power. And we have the power to do that. I mean, who watches network TV anymore? I mean, if you wanted to be right, like, and that's the funny story about the name of my movie. I came up with that name like 15 years ago. Okay, you could never make a movie called Badass Women Doing Kick-Ass Shit 15, 20 years ago, right? But I kept the name, like, it was always rolling around in the back of my head, and that's the actual name of the movie, and it's on Apple TV and Amazon Prime, right? Like, you can watch it with that title, and that's the power of sharing stories and having other platforms. I mean, before it was just the 3 channels, and now, we have our own channels, all of us.
Yeah.
No, this is fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, it's the badass babe from Bihar that's out there in the world. Like, I'm here for it.
Love it. Senator, it was such a pleasure talking to you. I can talk to you for a few more hours without a problem.
I'm ready to go burn some shit down, frankly. Like,
But
I'm ready to go.
exactly, we'd love to continue this conversation at some point again. You're absolutely a motivation. Motivation.
Oh, you know what I call it? I call it motivation.
Of course you
Oh, of course you do.
Of course you do.
Motivation. Love it. So the motivation for anybody listening and watching, look up motivation. You're going to find it. Google it. I think Google needs to have a word like that. Or Webster Dictionary, somebody. But thank you so much for your time. This really means a lot to us. And we wish you a very good rest of the day.
Thank you so much. What a wonderful conversation, both of you. Thank you.
I have no words. Literally.
It was sort of like getting
What
shot
a
out of a gun.
powerhouse.
Yeah, she's a Spitfire.
What
I'm
a
here for it.
powerhouse.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there is a reason why from Bihar in India to Senate seat in Washington makes every sense.
Well, the thing that I love about this story is that she's like, I did it for 4 years, and then I realized, I'm gonna go off and do something else. It's like I knit a sweater once when I was in my 20s, and it turned out really well. I never knit another thing because I thought, okay, knitting done. It's not the same as being in the United States Senate. Like, I just think it's hilarious that she came in and she's like, I affected all of this incredible change, and then I realized maybe I need to shine my light on something else, and now she's gone off to do that.
True, but what was really alarming for me is how much money a senator makes in the United States.
50 grand.
50 grand, and you expect them to be...
I always thought it was a full-time job.
I thought so too.
Not a full-time job.
No, but for a $50,000, do you really expect them to be as efficient?
So here's the question that I wanted to ask, and I forgot to ask it. It came up in the forefront of my brain every once in a while. But so there are, as she said, lifetime senators, right? There are people that have been doing this for 30 years. So where else is that money coming from? If they're, you know what I'm saying? Like,
and their net worth is not that low.
No, most of these people come from incredibly affluent families
Exactly.
to begin with.
But also have businesses, probably, that they
but
can
then
afford to stay out of.
I also think there's special interest groups.
Of course,
I think there's kickbacks.
100%.
I think there's all kinds of other.
And we are making
stuff.
assumptions here, but that's the realistic assumption.
Well, I have cable TV. I know what happens in the United States.
Fair enough. I don't have cable TV, so
I
I'm
don't
gonna
actually.
stay out of that.
I don't actually have
I know
cable
you're
TV.
just making it
Yeah.
up. But the reality is, it is unfortunate because people like Senator Das, or sorry, she doesn't like Senator
No.
Das. People like Mona, who are there to make a difference, genuinely cannot afford a living with that salary, so they have to move away.
Which is, again, goes back to the point that she made that the systems are working just fine. Thank you very much. Because what it
That
does
is it.
is it wears people out before they can get their teeth into something. And economically, never mind everything else, it pushes people out of the system because they can't afford to stay there.
That's it. That is the key word you said. That the people who they don't want do not afford to be there.
Can't afford, yeah.
And that is the thing. And the people who can afford are the issue. And that is exactly what Senator said. That's exactly what you're talking about. The system is working just perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect for a handful,
Yeah.
not for the masses.
If you understand that the system is predicated on abject corruption.
And that is what it is. And it's we're talking about US in this case.
Sure.
But most of the countries is not different.
Looks like a duck, quacks like a duck.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate. But I'm really so excited to the part, and I mentioned that towards the end of the podcast, is of course I'm sad with Senator Mona Das not being a part of Senate, but the work that she's doing in promoting and making other Mona Dases, which is amazing. And that is what we need. We need the regular people who really wants to make a difference to take on the role of policymakers and actually go and make, and that doesn't mean that everybody needs to run for office.
Nope.
Let's be really clear. It is not that everybody needs to run for office, but everybody needs to have a voice.
And it's that
That
whole,
is it.
It's that whole notion of, Marshall McLuhan saying the medium is the message. Like, she is the message. And
Yeah.
the message is you need to go out there and activate yourself and your community in whatever way resonates with you, but you need to do something.
100%.
And having somebody come along to guide you in that, I would think is incredibly invaluable, because it's not enough to have desire. It's not enough to have education. It's not enough to even have influence. You have to have a confluence of all of those things. And to have somebody help you navigate that, I think is, that's what we need, is we need to sort of catalyze. Yes, we need individual contributors, but we also need people to help manage and
100%.
direct and guide
And which is priceless.
and mentor.
Which is priceless
Yes.
because how much time has it taken me to figure out how to navigate Ottawa?
Right.
And I still haven't been successful fully.
Right. But
I know a
imagine
little
all
bit.
the stuff you could tell people coming up behind you.
100%.
Yeah.
But most of the people, many I know who's born and brought up here,
Mhm.
hasn't figured that out either.
Mm.
So if there is somebody who can guide and help
Mhm.
with the right intention in mind,
Mhm.
we will have a better world.
Let me ask you this question. Do you think the fact that you are an immigrant, not necessarily from India, but also that Mona is an immigrant, do you think that the drive is there in a way that people that are born here don't have?
I totally think so. Not we are generalizing here.
I don't mean
we are
specifically
very
from India. I just
generalizing.
mean, yeah.
But also when we immigrate, and I'm going to talk for me, not for Mona.
Whose parents, by the way, she said had $6 when they came
Yeah.
to the United States.
I was rich. I had 42.
Oh, okay.
That's a different story.
Mm-hmm.
But let me say this: when we come in, and especially I'm talking about myself,
Mm-hmm.
nothing is on a silver platter.
Mm-hmm.
You need to fight for everything.
Mm-hmm.
You need to fight to have a roof over your head,
Mm-hmm.
a meal. You need to fight for a job.
Mm-hmm.
There was places where I was not given a job, not because I didn't know the work. It's just because how I look like.
Mm-hmm.
And that is not only my story. That is a story for many.
No.
So we had to struggle. We had to fight. We have to think about if we don't fight, what do we lose?
But isn't that an interesting advertisement for marginalized populations in general? When you are so used to having to fight for things, wouldn't it be interesting to put those people in charge and see what they could get done versus people who have grown complacent or who have benefited from generational wealth?
100%.
Or-
But the system, once again, as both Mona and you spoke about,
Mm-hmm.
the system is not geared for that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So
I have ran for office a couple of times.
Mhm.
It is not easy.
Mm-hmm.
If I had money
Mm-hmm.
and if I came from generational wealth,
Mm-hmm.
it would be a very different campaign. And today I wouldn't be sitting here. I would be sitting in a council chair or as an MP or MPP or whatever that might be.
Yeah.
It is not easy. The system is not geared for that.
No.
And the system is geared for people of privilege
Yeah.
to have those positions.
To maintain and pass along the privilege to other people of privilege. I mean, that's one of the statistics that came out when Kamala Harris was running for president, was how much it actually costs to run for president, how much money you need in order to participate in the presidential race. And I mean, I think to scale, it's the same truth in any place where you're running for public
100%.
office. And that really excludes a huge portion of the population.
And the reality is, our governments, maybe city, maybe province, maybe federal,
Mhm.
they have put policies and rules in place to try to make it a level field,
Mm-hmm.
but the enforcement is poor.
Sure.
And the enforcement of it, we know what happens in campaigns.
Mhm.
It is not what it looks.
No.
And if I am not in the position to have friends who would write me $50,000, $60,000 checks
Mhm.
or do some backdoor work,
Mhm.
I am not getting elected.
Well, and then what kind of a politician does that make you?
Because I'm in bed already with the people who will ask for help.
Right.
And that is the reality, and I'm generalizing here.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah, of
keep
course,
in
of
mind,
course.
everybody's not that way.
No.
But I'm generalizing, but that is the reality of it.
Mhm.
And that is why the system is geared towards politics and people running for office or people having those positions
Mhm.
who have a different mindset. It's not that they are bad or
No.
they are thinking poorly. That's not what it is. It is their lived experience dictates a different world.
Also, some of them are bad and they're
Yeah,
living poorly. Let's be
Okay,
clear.
I didn't want to say that.
No,
But-
I'll say it. Again, I remind you why it is that I'm also on this podcast,
No,
because there are
totally.
things you can't say that I will absolutely
Totally.
say. And some of those people are garbage people and they shouldn't be in charge of other people.
100%. But at the end of the day, they are coming from a lived experience which is very different than mine
The
or
vast majority,
of
the
the people.
vast majority, that's what I'm saying.
Exactly.
These people's existence is not representative of the global population
No.
in any capacity.
No. And that is, I think, a shift that will we ever see in our lifetime happen?
I don't know.
I hope so.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know how to take that down without taking everything else down with it.
Yeah.
And maybe it all just has to go.
But at the end of the day, we'll be hopeful.
Yes, we're going to
because
stay
we will
positive.
stay positive.
Yes, and
And
optimistic.
we will have a hunger-free world, and we're going to all work together. We're going to follow footsteps like Senator Mona does it,
Mhm.
and we will make a difference. You will make a difference. Follow us, the Zero Hunger Project.